All right, man, peace. So Reid, the former free safety of the San Francisco 49ers, is now pretty much collateral damage from deciding that he was going to become Confederate with Mr. Colin Kaepernick in his protest, allegedly against quote-unquote police brutality that they would execute during the national anthem, but was actually just meant to bring chaos into the NFL. It seems as if the mainstream liberal sports media pundits are now finally starting to catch up to what I've been saying since last season, which is that Colin Kaepernick's protest was not planned at all, that it was very poorly executed, that it had no end game, and that it hurt the NFL's bottom line, which is what this has all been about from the very start, trying to cripple the NFL, to turn it into a woke league similar to the NBA. Anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Elsewhere in sports-related activism, free agent safety Reid, the first NFL player to kneel alongside Colin Kaepernick for the national anthem, says he will not demonstrate in the same manner this season as he searches for a new team.
No shit. Isn't it funny? All these little silly Negroes that fell down that woke rabbit hole, all of a sudden, they're forced to climb out of it with their tail firmly planted in between their legs. Ain't that a bitch? Because they wanted the so-called white man to give them a hug so bad. They got down on one knee. They were ready to get down on two knees, begging the so-called white man, please treat me equals. I don't want to run my own communities. Only you can run my communities for me. Please help me. I'm going to grow my afros out and act like I'm pros black so I can hide the fact that I just want you to love me. That's all I really wants.
Reid said, quote, I'm not saying I'm going to stop being active because I won't. I'm just going to consider different ways to be active.
Get out of here. Now that your money's being affected and you realize that you need money to live and to continue on and to assist your family and those that are important to you, now you want to consider more productive ways to be active and help out your own. Ain't that a bitch? Wow. Brothers, this is why I tell you not to follow behind these idiots, man. And unfortunately, because many so-called young black men are being raised in environments that are dominated by feminine energy, they're trained to follow their emotions as opposed to following rationale and understanding what society is really about. It's only about power, and you only get power through discipline. Discipline is instilled within you by growing up in an environment that is ordered and structured. It's not about looking at people and hoping that they feel sorry for you. Nobody is ever going to feel sorry for you, especially as a so-called young black man. You have to understand that. You march with these degenerates, you're going to get exactly what they get, which is a lot of nothing. Okay? A lot of nothing. And now this person here feels like he's going to get blackballed from the NFL, and the free agency portion of the season just started. It may just be that there aren't any teams that view him as being a viable replacement for whatever they had last year. But he's so paranoid, he feels like he can't get a job because he was Confederate with Colin Kaepernick. So what does that tell you about what he's been thinking about lately?
Active, different ways to bring awareness to the issues of this country and improve on the issues happening in this country. I don't think it will be in the form of protesting during the anthem. I say during because it's crazy that the narrative changed to the way we were protesting the anthem, and that wasn't the case.
Well, you know what, Reid, when you protest during the national anthem, the people who consider themselves to be patriotic are going to associate your protest with the national anthem. That's pretty much how that goes. That's how that goes, bro. It's really not that difficult to grasp or understand. A lot of the internet revolutionary cheerleaders that like to get behind you guys, they're even dumber than you are. Because if they really cared about you and loved you, they would have told you to get up off your knee, make sure that you got your paycheck, that you can go help your family out, and plan ahead for the next collective bargaining agreement so you can get a greater share of the overall pot of the revenue so that you could take that money back, open up businesses, invest in your own community, and then you could employ your own people. That's how that's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be, we're going to get down on one knee and beg the so-called white man to love us. We're going to get down on one knee and beg the cops to stop shooting us. Get the community strong enough so that we can have our own police force. That's how that goes. But in order for you to do that, well, you have to stop worshiping the woman. because the woman does not want the so-called black man to be an authority figure over her. That's why having a so-called all-black police force for the so-called black community is something that will never happen. There are so many levels and layers of programming that the so-called black man has to overcome that really we have to start from ground level and work our way upward when it comes to the so-called black man. And in the process of working through these layers of programming, there are going to be a lot of demographics that get alienated. And that's a part of the process. That's okay.
Wasn't the case, I think we're going to take a different approach to how we are going to be active. More First Take right now.
You just heard it, gentlemen. Eric Reid says he won't protest during the national anthem this coming season. Do you have a problem with him saying this, Stephen A?
I don't have a problem with him saying it. I think it's the smart way to go. And I think that, there are people out there, particularly folks within the African-American community, who need to grow up.
Absolutely agree, sir. I've been saying that for a very long time, that if you were to judge the overall spiritual and mental age of each and every so-called race, the so-called black man and woman are at the level of a juvenile, at the level of an adolescent in how they comprehend and think about things on a worldly scale. Our people are the only people who are constantly trying to appeal to people's emotions and don't understand how our own conduct and our own concepts, our conceptual abilities and perceptual abilities about what is going on around us is affecting our reality. So-called black men and women talk about black businesses, but they're the ones who keep many of these businesses of these other races within the so-called black community afloat. The so-called black man cannot even go to an Asian community and open up a soul food restaurant. They would get run out. But they can come into our communities, so-called communities, and open up any business that they want and know for a fact that the so-called black man and woman will support them and keep them not only afloat, but make them affluent. The Asians have 3 types of businesses in the so-called black community. They have the laundromat, they have the dry cleaner, and they have the restaurants. And they're in no danger of going under. None. And that's not even counting the billion-dollar industry that the liberal black woman makes sure that she maintains for the Koreans and their hair products.
And understand that there's a difference between talking about somebody as if they're wrong and pointing out reality. Colin Kaepernick was not wrong. Eric Reid was not wrong. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there are going to be repercussions and ramifications for their actions that they may or may not want to deal with. And so as a result, you have to highlight what those ramifications may be and then ask themselves, is it worth it? Eric Reid wants to continue to play in the NFL.
And he still has an opportunity to play in the NFL. But right now, he's been out of work for a week and he's getting paranoid because he has people telling him, most likely Kaepernick himself, they're not going to hire you. No team is going to pick you up because they didn't pick me up, so they're not going to pick you up. They're not going to pick you up because you decided to come against the system. All these things are ruminating in his head right now. And now he's starting to wonder how he's going to feed his family. These are things that he should have thought about well beforehand before he tried to live out this fantasy where he was going to get down on one knee and cripple the NFL and cripple the fabric of the American society and the prison industrial complex, all because he got down on one knee with his fraternity brother. No, sir, it doesn't work that way.
They've already sent their message as it pertains to kneeling for the national anthem. There are other things that he can do, and he has been on the record saying there are other things that he will do to bring attention to the causes that he holds near and dear to his heart, and hopefully Colin Kaepernick will do the same. But when you go about the business of doing something that's going to clearly compromise the very brand that's employing you and putting money in your pocket.
Thank you, sir. I don't understand what part of the game plan would entail making sure that I can no longer eat. When you can no longer eat and you're the provider for your family, that means that your family can no longer eat. When your family can no longer eat, that means that their whole concept, their whole perception of who you are as a man will change. Because a man's number one priority is supposed to be to provide for himself and for his family. Period. When you start talking about how we're going to change the paradigms of society, that's when you become a planner. You must get behind closed doors with other like-minded men and sit and plot and conspire. That's what the word conspire means. It means to breathe together, to breathe as one, to be of one mind, of one spirit. Not to say, oh, well, I like what Colin's doing. That's getting him attention. That's getting him acclaim. That's getting him likes on social media. Let me go ahead and do it too. Just dumb shit.
By the way, a brand which you didn't express a problem with to begin with, which means that you should have no incentive to compromise their bottom line. It is wise of you to take steps back, to modify your position.
Absolutely, especially when their bottom line is your bottom line.
And to think of different ways to address the concerns that you initially expressed without compromising your bottom line. There are people already, Max, on Twitter and beyond, Stephen A's and Uncle Tom, and Stephen A's a sellout because I'm saying this or I'm saying...
Well, brother, look, at the end of the day, you're a boule negro. So you are going to be accused of certain things, but is there an internet revolutionary mafia out there? There's no doubt about that. People are real revolutionary when it comes to them fingertips and when they clickety-clacking on them keyboards. Every nigga is Nat Turner and Denmark VC and, everybody's a revolutionary over the internet. Those are the same people who go to work on Monday morning and they're waiting for Chip from marketing to come over by the water cooler so that they can joke around with them and ask them about if they saw the baseball game last night. Those same niggas that talk all that revolutionary shit on the internet, they're the same ones Monday morning who are waiting for the white boy from marketing to come to the water cooler so that they can have a conversation about the baseball game. I promise you that. Because ain't none of them niggas running up in the police station with an automatic, with a semi-automatic machine gun to start the race war. Not one of them. Not one of them. And if they're not waiting for Chip from marketing, they're getting up at 11 o'clock in the morning on Monday to play their video games. And then when nightfall comes, they're going to go try to move some weight or sell some weed or whatever. 90% of the internet revolutionaries, that's what their real lives are about. They damn sure not trying to start no damn race war. And people can get mad at that. I don't give a shit. It is what it is. But does Stephen A have some issues in regards to his allegiances and his alliances? Sure he does, because he's boule. But every time you don't want to be a supporter of the protest paradigm, a lot of the internet revolutionaries, they get upset because they have a very low level thought process. They just want to be seen. They don't really understand what it takes to change a society. They're not really built for it. They're not. They try to act like they are. They run around talking about Wakanda forever and all that other shit. You know what it would take for so-called black people to have their own society that was fully functional? We have to get rid of a lot of these low-level niggas. Simple as that. A lot of people might not like that. But a lot of these niggas got to go. Period.
I'm saying that. I'm spitting facts. I'm telling you for a fact this is what the owners are going to do to individuals who compromise their bottom line, particularly when your issue was never against the National Football League. They're going to do it like Stephen Ross said it, the owner of the Miami Dolphins. He initially was in support of Colin Kaepernick. He was originally in support of him taking the stance that he took.
And remember, the Baltimore owner was about to sign him until Colin Kaepernick's handler, Nessa Diab, the MK programmed handler, as well as being an MK programmed asset herself, put the kibosh on it.
But once the president hijacked the issue, he said, okay, this is affecting our bottom line. Maybe not totally, as you pointed out, Max. Maybe other things came into the equation, but that had something to do with compromising their bottom line. And they're not going to let it happen again.
And good for them. Good for them. If I want to watch an NFL game, I want to watch an NFL game. I don't want to see low-level Negroes trying to act as if they're being rebellious when they're not. None of those guys are truly being rebellious. None of them are truly revolutionaries at all. They don't even understand what a revolution is. It has to start with the brain first. It has to start with the mind. You have to have an end game first before you do anything or before you mobilize in any way. And all that being said, nothing carnal is going to work in this society anyway. This kingdom has to come to an end according to prophecy. A lot of people are not going to grasp that, like that, or believe that. It's okay. I know for a fact that you believe that more than you believe what you have planned. You know how I know that? Because if you truly believed in what you had planned, you'd be mobilizing, you'd be trying to start a revolution right now. You're not doing that. You're sitting behind a screen and behind a keyboard.
That's what they're saying, so I think Eric Reid is smart to take a different approach.
There's a couple things here. Number one, Eric Reid should do what he feels is right for him. I'm not going to say that he's doing the wrong thing for him. He's his own individual. It's his life, and he has to make his choices. I will say I have a problem with circumstances if they are forcing him to do this, even though he doesn't want to do it. In other words, even if he feels like if he feels like he can't continue protesting and have a job in the NFL, if he must parrot the owner's political speech by standing for the anthem in order to play, then I find it sad circumstances, and I think it's...
You don't find it sad at all, Max Kellerman. You're full of shit. You know how I know that? Because if ESPN told you tomorrow that we have a new requirement to work here, you must stop saying certain liberal things, or you must ease off of your super liberal rants on television, you will stop tomorrow. You wouldn't say I'm leaving, because I believe so ardently in what I'm saying that I'm not going to compromise myself. I'm going to leave and go to Fox Sports 1 or go to another network. You're not going to do that, Max Kellerman, because you're about your dollar. Simple as that. The same way with Jemele Hill, she talked all that shit, and you see how she bowed out. Same thing with Michael Smith. They both fell down the woke rabbit hole, and they had to crawl back out with their tail between their legs because they were two more Negroes that had no plan. They were just getting caught up in some other trendy internet shit. Michael Smith, damn near 40 years old. Jemele Hill, pushing 50 years old, getting caught up in a damn trend. And the only reason why, once again, they fell down the woke rabbit hole is because Michael Smith worships liberal black women and Jemele Hill worships herself. Like I tell you brothers all the time. The liberal black woman has three altars. That is racialist. That means she loves talking about racial issues, but only for attention. Globalist, meaning what? She wants to love everybody, and she loves to become confederate with the gay and lesbian movements. And then it's the feminist, which is her number one altar. And I tell you brothers this all the time. All these movements are about is making the so-called black man the vanguard of these movements. They want to put you on the front lines so that you could take all the bullets. And after you take all the bullets, they're going to reap all the benefits, and they're going to throw your black ass in jail because they don't care about you, man. All right? The so-called black man's movement is with the Most High. And we have to get a proper understanding of our history and our culture. And from there, then this society is going to start to crumble, which it already is. But you have to stop putting your spirit and your mental energy into how you can become more engrafted into this society and getting people to like you. It's not their job to like you. It's their job to pay you and compensate you for what you do. And I know a lot of brothers don't vibe with the Bible. That's fine. It is what it is. Y'all going to conform eventually anyway, because all that other shit that you believe in, it's going to fall by the wayside because it amounts to nothing. And like I said before, I know for a fact a lot of you brothers don't truly believe in the doctrines that you claim you believe in, because if you really did, number one, you'd either move back to the motherland, or number two, you start the race war. So I know for a fact a lot of y'all don't really believe in half that shit you're talking about. But once again, brothers, pay attention to what's going on with Mr. Eric Reid. He's paranoid out of his mind right now. Because now it's a year and a half later and he realizes, what the hell did I get myself into? His wife looking at him like a damn fool. If he's married. I assume that he's married, but his wife, his woman, whoever. I guarantee you, the woman he got at home is looking at him like a damn fool, because she probably had his back when he first started, because she was all caught up in the attention and the rah-rah shit. But him as a man, he's supposed to be a three-dimensional thinker and say to himself, what's the end game? How possible is it? What is the plausibility of it? And what result are we looking for? You can't ever allow yourself to get caught up in a trend, man. No. Not as a man.
Circumstances, and I don't think it's clearly related to the fact that ownership in the NFL is out of 32 owners, 31 are white. They're all rich, obviously. You have to be rich.
Well, no, they're actually all wealthy. You have to be wealthy to own an NFL team, not rich. Eric Reid is relatively rich. The owner of the 49ers is wealthy.
And most of them are old men and old white men, and none of them are African American. And I think it reflects, obviously, inarguably, that is a result of the history of our country, including our history's original sin. And I will point it out every time. It's ironic and a bad thing that the players who are protesting essentially systemic injustice are being silenced in their protest as a result, really, of systemic injustice, which results in the homogeneity of owners.
You don't even know what the fuck to say. You're just talking shit. Just trying to pull a bunch of multisyllabic words out of your ass. The fact of the matter is right now, the paradigm is an employer-employee relationship. That's it. Even before race, skin color, whatever. Because even though the majority of players in the NFL are so-called black, you still have Caucasian players that are in the NFL that must abide by the same rules as everybody else in the locker room. So as usual, Max Kellerman is fishing for a lot of racial bait, being the Caucasian Jew liberal that he is, trying to act as if he's quote-unquote down for the cause. Bottom line is that when you bring discord to anyone's business enterprise, I don't care what race they are, they're going to be mad as hell, and they're going to try to make sure that you're no longer a part of their business. They don't want you to hurt their bottom line. So Eric Reid is going to have to suffer for his decisions. He's going to have to endure the penance for his decisions. That's life. You could dislike homosexuals. If you go to your workplace, if it's in corporate America, and you state out loud, I don't like faggots, they're going to fire you most likely. You can't say, well, I have rights as an American citizen to free speech and blah, blah, blah. No, they're going to say, you know what, have a nice day. We also have a company policy. That's it. The same way that Max Kellerman understands that, the same way that Jamel Hill and Michael Smith acted like they didn't understand that, but they did. Because they took the money over leaving ESPN. So like I always tell you, brothers, the bottom line is the money. And scriptures tell you itself, money answers all things. That's it. So if you're going to be willing to protest, then you have to be willing to pay the price. Bottom line. And protesting doesn't really solve anything anyway. You're either going to be ready to go to war, or you're going to build together with your own people, or you're going to leave and go to another country. But trying to appeal to another race to feel sorry for you, to make you equal to them, really all you're saying is that you view them to be above you. We're going to protest until the white man treats us equal to how he treats his own. Well, who does that? Who treats other people as well as they treat their own? Do you treat people next door to you the same way you treat your family? I would hope not. You have to treat everyone with respect and kindness to a degree, as long as they conduct themselves, in a humane way towards you, sure. But you're not going to treat your son and your daughter in the same way that you treat a random person. No. It's called preferential treatment, and that occurs during rulership. Our people are not in rulership right now, and they have to face that.
Right, in terms of that demographic. Max, now let me say, that that things never change, Stephen A. When you talk about reality, things never change if you just accept reality. They change when people fight the good fight, and they continue to fight even at personal sacrifice, sometimes great personal sacrifice. Now the argument may be, guys, things.
Let me say something very quickly. Things change when you know how reality is supposed to be for you. Not when you decide that you want to appease or you want to conform to the standards that are set by your oppressor. What do I mean by that? Things don't change for you when you look at a bully and you beg a bully to like you. Bullies only respect you when they see that you're not going to tolerate their bullshit anymore. What does that mean? That means that you have to hurt them, wherever a bully's weakness is. The bully in this society is through the money system. It's through the monetary aspect, and our people don't grasp that. They keep trying to appeal to other people's emotions. If our people were willing to boycott a lot of the businesses that opened up or that have opened up in so-called black communities, the same way that they want to boycott for police shootings, watch how quickly money will start flowing within the so-called black community. But that can't happen. You know why? Because the so-called black man is not even allowed to run his own home. This is what I mean when I say that there are layers to this issue. And you could point the finger here and there and everywhere. But until the so-called black man disciplines himself and how he picks the woman that he's going to be with and how he conducts himself and how he loves himself, none of this shit is ever going to get any better. You can make 1,000,000 signs and you could march down 1,000 streets. None of this shit is going to change at all. It's definitely not going to change because you're emotionally bent out of shape because somebody won't give you a damn hug, or because a cop shot some dude who was jumping over fences and ended up in his grandmother's backyard 20 times. It's not going to change over that, brothers. And you allowing the woman to lead your protest, that's never going to garner you any respect. Period.
Things aren't so bad that you need to make enormous personal sacrifice in order to make change. Or they may be, you better really consider whether you're willing to make that sacrifice to make change. But I don't think the argument is ever uniformly, hey, you're going to have to sacrifice in order to make change, therefore be smart about this because one side has a lot of power. I don't like that argument.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, that's life. You do have to be smart when you decide that you're going to disrupt the status quo. You better be smart. But notice, Max Kellerman is stating that he's not an advocate for forward thinking. He's not an advocate for so-called black people utilizing rationale. You know why? Because then that would put him on a truly equal par with him. And he doesn't want that. He wants you to think emotionally while he thinks rationally so that he can stay a step ahead of you.
And I never have.
Well, you don't have to like the argument, but it's a reality that black folks in America have to face every single day. And I personally am sick and tired of seeing sacrifice. And certainly I'm not alluding to history from a civil rights perspective, because we all know that the sacrifices that were made were more than worth it because the situations were dire. But in this particular day and age, when there are so many avenues to provoke and create change, and to do so even while making sacrifices, but not necessarily sacrificing everything that you have worked for.
I agree, Stephen A. Smith. I agree, sir. And I state this all the time. There's no more excuses for brothers. There's no excuses for why you don't know certain things. There's no excuses for why you're not learning certain things. This is not the Jim Crow South, where you're not allowed access to certain information, certain books, certain literature, etc. It's not that time period. We're in the age of information. So a lot of times, so-called black people like to synchronize the time period that we're in now with the 1920s. Now, in a certain way, we're worse off than we ever were. But in other ways, we're better off than we ever were in this captivity. Let me specify. In this captivity, in certain ways, we're better off than we ever were. In other ways, we're worse off than we ever were. But you have to capitalize on the ways in which we're better off, so that you can try to make a better life for yourself and make better decisions for you. Once again, brothers, all you can change is you. You can't look at the so-called white man next to you and say, why don't you like me? Fuck all that. Conduct yourself on a high level and make everybody respect you. That's all life is about. Life is not about who likes you, man. Fuck all that. I mean, shit is going to be what it's going to be.
There are ways to go about doing it, and sometimes there's a conduit to that should be somebody other than yourself.
That
can't be ignored.
Should Eric Reid have a job? Look, okay, real quick, let me just say, Eric Reid should have a job in the NFL. He's a good player. Number two, the fact that he...
Well, presumably he should have a job. But how many other free agents are out there right now that are better than him? You're not making segments on them stating that they should have a job. You're advocating for him to have a job because you like the fact that he's quote-unquote socially active. That's not a parameter for what makes an NFL player, Max Kellerman. If I'm an owner, I'm wondering myself if having this guy on my team is going to alienate part of my fan base. Certain people out there might not like that. That's okay. When you're running a business, that's what you must consider. That's the bottom line of it.
That he doesn't reflects that he is being pushed out of the league unfairly. Number three,
we don't know that because there's 4 guys that are considered better than him that are without jobs right now too.
Thank you, Stephen A.
The argument, I'm making that assertion.
Yes, you're making that assertion, so therefore it's invalid. Because by you stating that you're making that assertion, what you're verifying is that your stance is not based in anything empirical. It's based in pure emotion, or at least for television's sake. Off camera, I'm sure it's something different.
Okay. The argument that is against the bottom line of the NFL to allow the protests, I don't think has been proven. And number 4, even if it has been proven, this is the argument that...
Well, Max Kellerman, has it not been proven or has it been proven? For you to say you don't think it's been proven, but even if it has, what does that mean, sir? That means that you have not done your proper research. That's what that means.
That store owners lawyers made in the South when they refused to serve African Americans. They were told, even if it's not me, I don't feel this way. My customers might. It's bad for my business. With all
due respect, I'm a black man that doesn't need a history lesson on what black folks have gone through from you or anybody else.
Good for you, Stephen A. Smith. It's about time that you nip this guy in the bud, because this is what many liberal or super liberal Caucasians love to do. They love to talk down to so-called black people and tell them about their history and how they should feel about things and try to put a battery in their back. So good for you for finally getting a backbone, Stephen A. Smith.
That's number one. And number two, and more importantly,
Look at Max Kellerman. He's incredulous as to Stephen A. Smith understanding what he's actually doing. And Max Kellerman is in his own world to such a degree that maybe he doesn't even understand what he's doing, because he patronizes so-called black people so much, and he assumes that every so-called black person is an idiot who will be happy that a white man is on their side, a so-called white man is on their side. So good for Stephen A. for finally seeing through a lot of the patronizing.
I have spoken to owners who have proclaimed that the protest had a negative impact on their bottom line.
They believe
that's what they told me. They're lying.
Listen,
but that's what they've said.
You know, this conversation is often accused of having it about the things on the surface and not the issues underneath it. The thing that Eric Reid was supposedly protesting for. So that's what we need to do right now, because while that's going on in Sacramento last night, the King's home.
Anyway, that's it on the Eric Reid issue. So hopefully brothers understand that before you decide to become a part of any organization, any company, any movement, anything where you're asked to become a part of a collective, that you think about exactly what the end game is for that organization or that collective, and whether or not you want to be a part of it, if that jibes in accord with what your end game is for your life. All right? So please think about that and understand that, and do not allow anyone to try to cater to your emotions to manipulate you, because 99% of people do not care about you as a so-called black man. They do not care about you. Okay? They want to use you and try to put a battery in your back to get you to be a foot soldier for them. All right? But anyway, peace.